Welcome into another episode of the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. The 49ers won a football game. And Trent Williams, Brandon Aiyuk not here. This rookie class is looking kind of promising. And who's on the bubble of making this 53? Steph and I will discuss that and more right after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. First of all, Steph, happy belated birthday, friend. And
Thank you, friend.
You're looking great. You're an incredible content creator, but you're an even better friend. So I just want to say happy birthday, happy belated to you, and I hope you had a blast.
Thank you. Yes. Yesterday was a long day, but it was good. So thank you.
Yeah. Hey, was it a long day? I mean, what was it like? What did you do after?
You went to
dinner?
It was a long day.
What's the vibe on the 33rd birthday?
I'm 25, actually.
There you go. Sorry, misspoke.
Like 8th time I'm turning 25. Yeah, no, we went to dinner. There was some other stuff that happened in the day that was kind of almost knocked the day off a little bit. But after dinner, we actually found a cat. The cat distribution system, sent us a cat, and so we were trying to find any place that we can leave it. It was like a kitten, and so we drove around looking for a place to drop off this cat, and we did eventually find a spot. So we felt pretty good after that, actually, that we were able to help this cat get a better life.
Oh, wow. Scoring some points with the big man upstairs. Karma's real. I think that's the only real thing that we can really put our finger on. Put out good energy, get it back. Speaking of good energy, the San Francisco 49ers won a game. It's Victory Tuesday, right? Whatever. I don't even know if that's really a thing. But the 49ers did beat the New Orleans Saints 16-10. A lot to complain about, a lot to look good, and to talk good about. What do you think? What were some of your big takeaways from the game? Who looked good? Who didn't?
I think, honestly, for me, the biggest takeaway of this game was that the youngsters look good. I think the rookies are looking really good, and I know that's still without having seen Ricky Pearsall play in an NFL game yet, but I think we should all be encouraged about what the rest of the guys have been able to do thus far, because I would even say some of them are outperforming some veterans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Renardo Green, Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa, and then we still haven't even seen the first rounder play. And obviously, the one that we're going to gloat about, and it's just preseason. And I love taking preseason victory laps because that's what it's all about. It's not about tangible regular season things. It's about preseason highlights and saying, ha, I was right. But Jacob Cowing, man, you're starting to look like the guy that we thought you would be, man. And I think that is the part that was the most exciting. The only play that was really a negative was the screen pass from Dobbs to him, and he tried to reverse field, but that was kind of botched and kind of blown up from the beginning. But you can see it. The separation's evident. Learns the route tree. I played a lot, played outside, played in the slot, only eight of his passing snaps. But Jacob Cowing, hello, buddy. Welcome to the league, man. And I don't think there's any way that you keep Jacob Cowing off of this 53-man roster.
Dare I say, holy Cowing? Can we?
Oh, right. Here we go.
Let's make that a thing. No, I mean, he was definitely impressive to me. And I think what's most impressive is the fact that he didn't really have a run up to this game. I mean, he didn't play in the first preseason game.
Right.
And as we know, throughout training camp, he was dealing with injuries. So it kind of felt like as soon as he got back in there, beat writers were talking about how he was having strong practices. And so really right out the gate, he was looking this good. And I think what we saw in that game on Sunday was just a reflection of that. So he looks very confident to me, and he looks the part, which I think those are some of the words we've been using to describe a lot of these rookies, right? And so there's a lot to feel good about with him. This pass right here from Dobbs, the one that was 30 plus yards, right? Yep. That one was a good showcase of him adjusting to the ball. It was a little underthrown, and it was behind him.
That should be a walk-in touchdown.
It should be, yeah. And with his speed as well, it very well could be. My favorite play was the jet sweep, because I think that showed his confidence and his speed. He outran two defenders who had pretty good angles on him. A lot of other guys would have been tackled right then and there. But he hit that corner and was able to make it a 19-yard gain. So I'm really excited. I can only imagine how excited Kyle Shanahan is to have a weapon like that. I mean, you speak to the fact that he was on the outside. We know he could play inside as well. So just the fact that I think he could be a chess piece. Like, you could do a lot of things with him. So I think that's something we're going to see mixed in throughout the season, just based on what we've seen so far in the preseason.
100%. And the ceiling is like a Tank Dell, right? And I think that would be, I mean, if the 49ers were able to find that version of Tank Dell, like in the 4th round, perfect, but I think when we say that, we're not saying that we're directly comping him to him. It's just that his skill set can eventually be something like Tank Dell, even though Tank Dell just burst onto the scene last season with the Houston Texans. But very confident young man. Also, first play of the game, welcome to the NFL. Get out there and block Cam Jordan. Get out there and block Cam Jordan. Go, right away. Cam Jordan. So it's got to be a willing blocker, but 53 snaps shows that, again, the depth is a little bit lacking for the 49ers, but they do show confidence in the young man, having him play, again, inside out, only 8 snaps on the slot, 28 of his passing snaps outside. So, I mean, rave reviews, right, for him, as well. We haven't seen anything from Ricky Pearsall, first-round pick. Haven't seen Isaac Guerendo yet, but Renardo Green allowed 1 catch to Chris Olave. That's Chris Olave is a name brand wide receiver. Very good, I think, right? Malik Mustafa, thumper. I think we all feel good about him as well, too. Even the linebacker, for whatever reason, his name is escaping me.
Aiden Bethune?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And now you've got 4 and 5 guys, and we haven't even spoken yet about Don Pooney, who's going to be the starting right guard. There's no shot that nobody is taking that from him. That's it. All done. It's funny because the book on him was brick wall and pass pro. That's exactly what he's been. And I think a little bit more in this game when you see the highlights and you see the film start to trickle out and everything. And, I've had a chance to look at it. His instincts of, okay, I don't have anybody to block. Let's find work and let's get over and help somebody else. Right. Yeah. I mean, like, again, if you're not blocking anyone because whatever, maybe the defense is doing something different, go find work. Go find work. So that's what he's doing. He's going back. Now, the offensive line looks to take a step up with Pooney, but he was saving Colton McKivitz a little bit, huh? Isn't that a little bit more of a concern, stuff?
That's a huge concern for me. I mean, he's had a couple of penalties even in the preseason as well. I get everyone's a little bit rusty, but if you're one of the 2 existing starters that start this game in preseason, I expect you to look the part of a guy who's been there before. And Colton McKivitz he doesn't look like he's been there before, right? Like, he's making mistakes I would expect one of the rookies to make. And that's just not what we want to see out of Colton McKivitz already, because we know this fan base will cook that man any chance that we get. But, like, he's also not showing us a reason to back off of him, right? There's just a lot of inconsistencies in his game. And I would say Jake Brendel kind of in that same tier as well. I mean, there were a lot of disappointing snaps from him too in this game. And I think, I would have really liked for the 49ers to bring any tackle to challenge Colton McKivitz. Yeah, we didn't get that. So it's going to be the Colton McKivitz at right tackle. Jake Brendel is another story, though. There is potential for competition for Jake Brendel. What's kept that from kind of happening as much is the injuries, right? Like John Feliciano dealing with injury right now. Even Ben Barch is hurt. So that's kind of hurt, I think, the 49ers' flexibility to try out some different things with other guys. And so this is kind of what we have right now. But this play right here, I mean, Brendel missing his block. And a lot of people were saying, like, Cody Schrader, like, he looks bad. But I wanted to drill into that a little bit and challenge it if that was really Cody Schrader's fault, or if it's because he wasn't finding holes because the blocks just weren't there. And I think it probably a combination of the two. But I saw a number of times that it was just the blocks not there for Cody Schrader. So
yeah, the Brendel thing is really interesting because at the beginning of last season, he was solid. And there was even talks of people saying, hey, if he keeps this up, he could find himself as a Pro Bowler. And then it tapered off as the season went on. How much of that has to do with an injury that he's still recovering from, or how much of that has to do with the person that he might just be? And for this offense to operate at its highest level of efficiency, you need a center. And what I mean by that is, think 2019 when Weston Richburg goes down, Ben Garland steps in and he does a fine job. He does okay, right? But it was humming when Weston Richburg was there, when they finally got it going. Think about Alex Mack and how the offense was able to operate, right? If the 49ers can find a way to shore up this center position now, and I think if you're asking me, I'm going to go with Trent, Banks, Feliciano, Pooney, and McKivitz. That's it. And I think you have Brendel there as insurance, but Feliciano's just better now at this point. And I think it's tough right now to look at the rest of this offensive line and say, hey, this guy is better than this guy, whatever. But when you don't have center shored up in this offense, it makes things a lot more difficult because of the way that they pin and pull and they move their linemen, and you've got to be short shuttle kings. Like when it comes to those things, I just think that right now, and you said it best, it's hard to figure out what or who it could be when Feliciano's been hurt and he just hasn't been able to be there. So yeah, I mean, it's funny. Shore up one part, another part starts to get leaky and everything as well too. So such is life with the 49ers offensive line, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And did I catch you say short shuttle kings?
Yes, short shuttle kings.
Used?
Yes,
okay.
short shuttle kings. Jake Brendel, very good at short shuttle. Same thing with Nugent. All of those guys, Kingston, all of them short shuttle kings. They want you to be able to be fast and move quickly. It's not about your 10-yard dash or your 40-yard dash because you're not going to be that far down the field. It's going to be straight on pin and pulls, like being able to move. So yeah, I mean, they value that from the center. That's why when you look at the center position, it's usually smaller guys. It's not these big, huge guys because they need them to be able to move. So yeah, it's a little bit frustrating right now because it's just like, hey, we've got this part figured out now. It seems like now here we go, and we're going back to another spot. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to become an issue or if this is going to be something that's going to rear its ugly head at the wrong time.
I do want to also mention, like, obviously Jake Brendel hasn't been 100% throughout camp as well because he's been dealing with like a knee thing. So
that's true too.
I think that's part of the reason why I think in the first preseason game we saw Nick Zakelj starting at center, but he had to play at guard, on Sunday because of more injuries. So that's just making it really hard to evaluate the offensive line, in my opinion. But at the same time, I think the offensive line looking the way it does kind of helps another offensive lineman, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing this is the thing. And I don't know if I want to be overly optimistic, but I just want to get people to chill out just a little bit. If you see this, right, with McKivitz, if the right guard is helping, and what he's really doing very well is he's very smart on picking up the stunts. He understands his assignment. He's not looking lost. There's no miscommunications, right? One way or another, whether you feel like the offensive line was a problem on that last drive or whatever in the Super Bowl, whether it's just straight up being beat or a miscommunication, there's always something. At least right now, it looks like Pooney understands his assignment. If Pooney's good at picking up stunts and also looking for work, like you see on that play where, okay, I've got my block and he could help McKivitz. There could be a way where that McKivitz could improve by the guy who's right there on his left somehow.
Yeah.
But I think I'm not trying to say anything nice about Colton McKivitz. Please don't kill me in the comments, guys. God.
Well, no, I think he's like McKivitz has already benefited, I think, from having Pooney there. So in the context of an entire season, I think we'll see it help. But I mean, Colton McKivitz has to help himself out as well. And so that's why I think, like, just as a whole, the offensive line dealing with the injuries that they are, some guys looking the way that they do, I think ultimately helps, a guy like Trent Williams make a strong case for himself, which, I mean, that case has already been made through several years, through his entire career of being the best at his position. But I think it adds to the urgency of the 49ers to want to get this done, especially when we're staring down the last couple weeks of the offseason here before week 1. I mean, I think it'd be great to get him in the building. Just an idea.
Today would be a great day to bring in Trent Williams. Trent Williams is sitting in the house watching left tackle play Jalen Moore. And there's no disrespect to Jalen Moore because you're not no one's going to replace Trent Williams, right? Like nobody, right? He's just sitting there like, hey man, add another M on that offer. Tell him to up that offer because you're not going to be able to do, again, so much of what the 49ers do running the football to the left is based on the fact that Trent Williams is there. And now if you start to take that away, and the one knock on Pooney is, and I think this is what, it's not a knock, it's improvement. He needs to is run blocking. It's just he's in the right position at times, but sometimes it's just he's off the wrong shoulder and the guy's just like getting through him just a little. Like these are all things he can improve on. Him being great in pass pro is probably good enough because there's so many guys on this line that are better run blockers than they are pass pro. So it's okay to have a little mixture of both. But if he can shore up a little bit more of the run blocking, then he becomes elite, right? Like, and he starts to become a guy that's like a cornerstone guard. But yeah, Trent Williams is sitting in the house just, getting the bag like more and more, just telling his agent like, hey, you watching this on TV? You watching this? You see that? You see him miss that block? Hey, you see they can't run to the left, right? Like he's like sitting there laughing with it. Yeah, he's having a blast right now with his feet up. He just doesn't want to go to training camp, but he's also watching his leverage go up with every time that Jalen Moore takes snaps. Jalen Moore is not a bad player, but it's just, again, you're not going to replace Trent Williams. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, hopefully Trent Williams will be with the team for their week 1 game. And Corey in the comments here has a question for us. Thank you for the super chat, Corey. He says, too soon for week 1 predictions. I'm calling a loss. I think the offseason drama catches up with the offense, and that stout Jets D gets the win for New York Jets. I think it's too early. I mean, I remember feeling like last year's week 1 game was concerning, right? Like I was thinking to myself, that's going to be a toss up. Like it could very well be because we didn't know what Brock Purdy was going to look like. That was part of it, right? But I think we tend to overreact about how the team looks in the preseason, and then it all kind of comes together in week 1. We got to remember that preseason, like they're not calling a lot of things that they would in an actual game, or they're just keeping it very vanilla, very surface level stuff. Same with the defense, because they're not trying to evaluate their team really as a whole in preseason. They're evaluating players, right, or like groupings of guys. So yeah, I mean, I'm not calling it a loss already. I think I feel pretty good about the 49ers taking on the Jets in week 1. And also you got to remember, Aaron Rodgers not playing in the preseason. I know a lot of people were upset about Brock Purdy playing as many snaps that he did, but he's not going to be rusty in week 1, or at least I wouldn't expect him to be.
Yeah. I have a hard time thinking that the Jets are going to do anything right, regardless of what's going in their favor. So yeah, give me the 49ers in that one. I mean, it's just last year, it's like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is here. Oh, season's over in 4 snaps. And then boom, you're right back to Zach Wilson. It's like the Jets have this thing of like, if anything bad can happen, it will happen. And I still think the 49ers are better than them as well, too. The one thing that I'll be looking at in that game that I think is a little bit more concerning is just the Robert Saleh, Kyle Shanahan chess match. Because in the Playmakers podcast, there's that whole section about how him and Kyle used to go at it to the point where they would have shouting matches, almost like, throw hands at like how they would go at it. So I think that's pretty interesting as well, too. But again, man, it's hard for me to ignore the fact that the New York Jets haven't been good ever in my life, basically. And they always have things terrible go wrong with them. So, yeah, I'm probably going to not pick the Jets, but I won't be betting on this game aside from like Christian McCaffrey touchdown, that type of stuff, but I'm staying away from points, game, whatever. But yeah, again, it's hard for me to say, oh my God, here come the mighty New York Jets. Like, I'd be a little bit more scared of another team that might like present problems that aren't as good as the Jets on paper.
And you being from New York, I think
I've got a big clear view. Yeah. Ask a Jets fan around here. Like I would literally say to a Jets fan, hey, you guys are looking good. And a Jets fan would be like, shit, who cares, man? I know exactly what's about to happen. And I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Like, geez, guys. Like,
they'll be better than last year for sure, though.
Right, can't even be a little excited. Like, they're just not excited at all. Daza0187 with the super chat. With how Calvin looks, JJ re-signed, BA potentially coming back. At what point do we say Pearsall was a wasted pick? A right tackle is so much more important than another weapon. I wouldn't say wasted. I think I think when you look at it, they just weren't as in love with whoever was on the board. And I fully believe that they wanted Roger Rosengarten and they were willing to wait for him. And that got taken away from them. So if it was Pearsall and Rosengarten, you don't feel so bad about that, right? Because he was right there. He was right there. So I wouldn't say a wasted pick. I think, again, they're trying to figure out what life is going to look like without Debo or BA, whoever it is. And I think, we don't know. At this point, I'm done with the predictions about who's going to go and stay or whatever. But I think, again, they're trying to think about life after that. And how do you do that? You bring in somebody who's cheap. So I wouldn't say a wasted pick. And this wouldn't look as bad in your eyes if Rosengarten was there. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, obviously it's way too early. I know the question is, at what point do we start asking that question? I think it would probably be at least 2 years for me to kind of know for sure, because you would have to be sure that Ricky Pearsall is not going to be the guy that you thought he was going to be be able to say that it was a wasted pick. We're obviously not there yet. So yeah, I think if the 49ers wanted a right tackle, if there was a guy that they liked at that pick, he'd be on the team. But obviously, just the way that the board shook out, that's not how it went. So they went with Pearsall, which is
the Ravens swooped in on Rosengarten. That's exactly who I think they were going for right there at right tackle. I think we would have all been fine with Pearsall and Rosengarten. That's just not how it shook out. And unfortunately, oops, I just got hit with my thing.
Damn. You got ghosts?
Yeah, probably. The issue is, though, 49er fans are upset because the trade with the Chiefs for Kingsley. And he's looking really good for the Chiefs, right? They walk away with Worthy and Suyamata. So I think that's kind of what it is more than anything.
I think this fan base has every right to be upset about this team not prioritizing tackle in a draft that was very tackle heavy. I think that's very fair, especially when we started this episode talking about Colton McKivitz and how he seems to still be struggling or just being inconsistent, and we're not seeing a lot of improvements from him. So yeah, I'm on the same boat. I would have liked them to address it, but I'm not calling Ricky Pearsall a wasted pick quite yet. It will take a bit.
Yeah. But again, other than that, and we still haven't seen Pearsall, this draft class seems to be one of the better ones the 49ers have had in a long time. And I think that's really, really important. So if you see something out of Pearsall, maybe the same thing with Garendo for a little bit, like then you really start to look at this draft class like, man, they really hit on so many of these guys. Now, do you need Garendo to make this draft class, seem like a net win? No, but that would be nice, again. So it's fine. Like, I think right now there's a lot of optimism about this draft class, especially one that you and I considered to be one of the most important, if not the most important of this regime to continue sustained winning. I think we're optimistic right now, but it's 2 preseason games, but still, like, you still have to feel okay, like right now. And you have to feel excited about where this is going with this draft class. And I think that's something that's great. It's something to be excited about, especially in an offseason where we're talking about the Aiyuk thing and Trent and, and all the injuries. Finally, right now, it seems like there's a little bit of a shining light of optimism to talk about with this team when it's in terms of what's going to happen going forward. But everything seems to be going in the right way in terms of the injuries not being as severe, and guys will be back in week 1. It's just, again, when does Trent come back? When does Brandon Aiyuk come back? It'd be real nice to get them in there, get them in that game on Sunday if they could, or just get them up. So yeah, I don't know how long that's going to take, but I think that we all would like a resolution sooner than later. But we've been saying that for all offseason?
All off season. And it's Tuesday, August 20th, and I swear this morning I saw the same regurgitated report that we've been hearing for the last few weeks with Brandon Aiyuk. So I don't think there's any updates on that. It's just rinse repeat at this point. But it just seems like the 49ers have offered, they've sent him more offers, and for whatever reason those haven't been accepted yet. So maybe they'll continue to chip away at that. But yeah, it just feels like at the same time, the 49ers know, like, they're not too pressed to make anything happen I mean, what's your take on that? Do you think
Yeah.
we talk about the urgency, but at the same
Mhm.
time, we know the 49ers have the leverage here. And
Mhm.
so I think they're reminded of that every now and again as well.
Mhm. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the holdup is. I think a lot of people have speculated guaranteed money, APY, all that stuff. I don't know, really. I think we can close the door on the trade. So that part's, kind of out of the way at least. At least we've knocked away one of the possibilities, and now it's just focused on getting this done. But I'll tell you this, Steph, if anybody wants to get ahead of this and act like they know what's going on, here's what you do. You send out a tweet saying, I'm hearing that this is going to get done pretty soon. And you leave it pretty vague, right? And then today's Tuesday. If it happens on Friday, you can always just retweet and say, I knew. You're just taking an educated guess at this point.
Just like
Everybody.
Vegas. Yeah, you
Yeah.
take the Vegas report that there is that suggests any glimmer of hope, and you say, I think this is going to get done soon.
I wouldn't be shocked if something happens. All right, man.
I wouldn't be shocked.
All right,
just
man.
leave the door open always.
Yeah,
the door open.
always. And keep it vague and generalized, and you should be fine. And then you can claim that you're an insider with sources and stuff like that. But nobody's here to talk about Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk, Steph. They're here to talk about the quarterback controversy. Joshua Dobbs, the pastronaut, is out here coming for QB1.
Taking off, man. Taking off. Cute, dude. That's so hilarious to me because I know some people do it as a joke, but I just know there's some people who are dead serious at the same time.
Some people are dead serious about that. They are.
It's so concerning. And I think that alone will be like if Kyle Shanahan ever caught wind of that people are serious about campaigning for Josh Dobbs to be QB1, that alone will make Kyle Shanahan be like, no, he can't make this roster. I can't have people questioning our QB1. But no, in all seriousness, obviously Josh Dobbs got the first crack after Brock Purdy to go into this game after Brandon Allen had the first crack the previous week. And so I'm glad that we got to see Dobbs in much favorable context than the previous week, because I think after the first preseason game, my questions about him were, okay, obviously he's exciting. Obviously he could extend plays, play out of structure when things fall apart. What could he look like within the structure? Because we know that's a huge thing for Kyle Shanahan, and especially like when you're considering QB2, right? So that was kind of still the question mark that I had with him. I think he answered those questions in this game. And not only that, like we did see the athleticism once again. We had that fun low zone read at the goal line that he took in for a touchdown. So those are just kind of the things that make him fun and exciting as a quarterback. But I question, what are the 49ers looking for in a backup quarterback? Are they looking for fun and exciting, or are they just looking for safe, boring, high floor, right? I think with Dobbs, what we've seen, and maybe it's because he's played more than a backup quarterback should. I think we've seen that he could be volatile. There's a reason that he was benched by the Vikings in favor of Nick Mullins, right? So as long as you don't get to that point with him where you're having to start him for multiple games, I think fun and exciting is good, and there's upside there, right? But I don't know if that's what the 49ers would want. So that's what I question.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you talk about backup quarterbacks, the idea is to not have a backup quarterback play a lot, because if the backup quarterback plays a lot is when you get exposed. When you have those 2 and 3 games, if you can, kind of tread water, you can get moments like Nick Mullins having more passing yards than Andrew Luck and Patrick Mahomes, right? But then when you start to play, all those cracks start to show. I do think that he is the quarterback too, because in his run-centric offense, they can run all that zone read stuff. He's obviously a very smart guy, like for, rocket scientist, all that. He's picked up the playbook. He knows where to go with the football. If the 49ers needed him for 1 or 2 games, I feel much better about it with a high floor, especially with the rushing floor, with, as you saw on the 4th and goal with the zone read. I feel way better about it because all the things that he wanted to do, I guess, with Trey Lance, he could do with Josh Dobbs. And you can do that for a game or 2. You just can't hope, and you just hope that Josh Dobbs isn't going to be out there for a long time, because then that's when you'll see the cracks a little bit more. So, yeah, I think he's fine for quarterback 2. Again, we're so, I guess, traumatized by the backup quarterback position because there's been so many times where the backup has had to play too many times. And now it's become something that is a huge topic of conversation. But for the most part, it doesn't seem like this should be too much of an issue if he has to be on the field for 1 or 2 games. And Matt Barrows just tweeted, 49ers will have some players back in practice this week. Ben Barch, Spencer Burford, only individual drills. Isaac Garendo, Patrick Taylor Jr. John Feliciano had to have surgery on his knee and could start the season on IR. Jake Brendel is your starter as center. Steph, let's throw that out the window.
I think we all hate this because, I think John Feliciano, we know how valuable he was, obviously, last season, filling in at right guard. We know he doesn't have to do that this year. Don Pooney for the win. But now with right guard kind of being solidified, John Feliciano would have been a perfect guy to take over center, at least give some competition to Jake Brendel. Now you don't have that option. So that's concerning. That's concerning for me. Now we're stuck. We're stuck with Brendel and we're stuck with Colton McKivitz. I mean, Ben Barch, they were kind of rotating here and there at center. I mean, I guess that's good. He's going to be coming back, but I don't love it. I don't love this, Jay.
Oh, baby. So breaking news. Yeah, your center starting week 1 for all intents and purposes is going to be Jake Brendel one way or another, whether you like it or not, pal. But I mean, this is good though. There's going to be a lot of guys that are coming back, right?
This is Cowing, good. That's good.
Yeah, with Cowing, he came back and he didn't really have too much of a ramp up time, but again, he showed out right away. I think what you want to see is maybe a little bit of the starters, but I don't need to see Fred Warner or George Kittle or any of those guys. You just want to see the offensive line get some more cohesion and some more playing time together. But this game is going to be maybe 1 or 2 series, maybe with the guys on the field. You'll see a little Debo. You'll see some Juwan Jennings, but I don't know what the plan is right now, for what they intend to do right here, because there was the whole Brock Purdy out there with the backups thing. That's been a hot button issue, all that stuff. But 0 updates, nothing has changed on Brandon Aiyuk and Trent Williams because Kyle Shanahan is speaking right now. So I do love that. I do love that. I think no news is good news. Is that how we're going to take this?
Whatever the saying is. And I guess Ricky Pearsall, who I guess there was optimism that he would maybe be able to practice this week. He will not practice this week, according
He's
to
not practicing this week. So. And that means he is not going to play.
Yes.
Ricky Pearsall.
So that's unfortunate as well. But as we said, hey, at least we have a Jacob Cowing, right?
Yep.
Debo, JJ. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So let's do this. Ricky Pearsall and Hufanga won't practice this week, according to Kyle Shanahan. Okay, let's do this. Let's do the 6 wide receiver room, right? So I would say, obviously, Aiyuk, Debo, Juwan Jennings, those are your 3. Give me Cowing, give me Pearsall, and give me Chris Conley.
I want Chris Conley, yes.
Yeah, I think Chris Conley is your 6th receiver. Look, Trent Taylor, it's been fun. Enough.
Has it though?
No, it hasn't been fun. It's me being sarcastic. Ronnie Bell, it's done. No more. Danny Gray, no more. So it's tough right now to look at all those other guys and everything, but Conley has to make this team right now, right? He actually produced in the playoffs when he was counted on, right? And he's a special teams player, not a returner, but a special teams player. So I think if everything goes well, and obviously Pearsall needs to be healthy to meet the team and everything as well too. We'll see. We'll see. But I definitely don't see how Conley doesn't make this team. And everybody else, it's been fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think even if obviously they get this extension with Brandon Aiyuk, you have to keep Chris Conley, because should anything happen to Brandon Aiyuk this season, any type of injury to him, you need a true X. And I think Chris Conley does that. So it's he kind of resembles Brandon Aiyuk when he's out there on the field, but I think he's also an appropriate backup to him as well. And obviously you got to keep the 2 rookies in, and like we said, the early returns on Cowing. And in the very short time that we've seen Pearsall, like it's been positive for those guys. Danny Gray, like training camp, I like that first week of training camp, I felt like they were trying to pepper him with targets, get him
Give him every
involved.
opportunity.
See exactly. Then he got hurt, and it just seemed like he wasn't able to recover from that, from I guess like the opportunity standpoint. Like he wasn't able to muster anything up from that after. Trent Taylor, like he was also getting involved, but mostly like, you know, being a security blanket to the quarterbacks and things like that. I think what we've seen in the preseason is what we would expect to see if he did make this roster, which is not very good. But at the same time, I think early in camp, my thought was he could make this team because of the return ability, and he's the most reliable at that. I got to say, seeing Jacob Cowan handle that in the preseason game on Sunday, he looked good and he looked comfortable. And I think the emergence of him as a receiver as well.
And he has more juice.
So much more juice. Like, yes, absolutely. Give me that 100 times over Trent Taylor. So like, I think Cowan showing on Sunday pretty much, you know, cut Trent Taylor right then and there. Yep. Now, the question is, out of those guys that we can assume are going to get cut, Ronnie Bell as well, you mentioned him.
I think he's out, yeah.
Who could stick around as a practice squad guy? Ronnie Bell, for example, I think the 49ers is like, that's someone who I think they would welcome back on their practice squad.
But I think he gets poached.
I think he gets poached. I was thinking the same thing. Obviously, the obvious answer there would be to the Chargers, go back to hardball.
Michigan, baby.
That could be nice for him. But let's just say that doesn't happen. I think the 49ers would welcome him back on the practice squad. And even like they might even welcome Trent Taylor back. Because like now the practice squad is so deep. What is it, like 17 guys you can allow now?
Yeah. Oh. Well, this is interesting.
Punter. You want to talk about
now look.
Guys,
now look.
Kickers?
Now look. Jason, why do you get so mad when the 49ers drafted a punter? Jason, why do you think that that's such a bad idea? Because you found Harvin on the street. You found him on the street, and he's punting very well. Why use a valuable draft pick on any sort of specialist? I'm done. I'm not going to say anything more. That's it. This is your case study right here. Why use a draft pick on a specialist when you found one on the street? I don't understand. That's it. I'm not going to say anything spicy. I'm good. You guys know where I stand on this. But this is your case study.
And what's funny now is like, yeah, you got a really good punter. Like four punts in the 10. Yo, you're cooking. So now what? Like, what are you gonna have to do with that punter? You're gonna have to.
They'll just go back to Mitch. I mean, you took him from the 4th round pick. Like you just need a guy. You just need a guy. Like you just need a guy around. You know. So
exactly. They're gonna go back.
They'll go back to Mitch. It's
perfectly good, lightly used punter. They're gonna let him go.
It's just kind of funny to me that, you know, hey, have you ever kicked the football before? Well, not in a long time. Come on in. Let's see what we got here.
And he looks great, right?
And he looks great. Yeah.
It isn't a science.
100%. 100%. Hey, I want to talk about Alex Barrett.
He looked good.
He looks good, man. I mean, his pressure numbers were insane in this game. Alex Barrett was probably the most dominant player on both sides of the ball besides Pooney in this game, man. He looks amazing.
4 pressures on 33 total snaps. That's a pretty good pressure rate right there. He also had the sack, the strip sack, 3 hurries as well. It just felt like from the group of depth guys that they had out there, he looked the strongest out of all of them. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah, and I think we feel like the defensive line is going to be fine, but we do feel like this is probably the thinnest it's been in a long time, right? And I think, again, you know, Yetur Gross-Matos, Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, like all of them are going to be rotational guys. And then Leonard Floyd is your veteran edge. After that, it gets a little nervous, right? Like it gets a little scary. So Alex Barrett, you know, showing out a little bit more, that could be something where we look back and we say, hey, he's been kind of piddling around in this roster. well, maybe they finally found something out of him. Maybe Kosaric and the guys really got something out of him.
It definitely gives me more confidence in the depth for edge, because not that we were expecting anything from Drake Jackson, but obviously, like, you have one less guy there who can rotate in. So Alex Barrett, next man up, come on up. I mean, I think he looked good. So that's good for the 49ers. And there's a couple guys like Shackle Brown as well, like had a few nice. T.Y. McGill had a couple of nice plays at the interior as well, which is good because you have one less guy with Kalia Davis's injury as well. So some of these guys stepping up is definitely a good sign. What I want to talk about is the linebackers, because you mentioned Tatum Bethune at the top of the show, and we were talking about some of these young guys stepping up. D. Winters didn't play in this game. I know we still have some questions about him, but Curtis Robinson, looked good. I mean, he's taking his opportunity and he's making the most of it for sure. And that's exactly what you want to see. The 49ers have a really good track record of being able to develop linebackers, and it seems like Curtis Robinson is the next guy up in developed guys who, kind of making a name for themselves. So as far as like the linebackers and Bethune looking good, Jalen Graham has like flashed here and there. I kind of wonder who they'll keep. So like if they keep 6, like who are your 6? Obviously we got Fred. You got to keep Greenlaw on the pup. I assume they're going to keep him on the pup. Devondre Campbell. So there's your 3 there. Now what do you do after that?
Right. And how many would you keep? Right. Like, this 53-man roster is going to get it's a little bit easier to navigate now based on the injuries. And I don't mean that as a good thing. I mean, like, it's easier because it's going to be, it's not a good thing at all. But I mean, like, if you're looking at the way now, okay, so now we don't have to worry about bringing this guy along. We can put him on, short-term IR. And guys, I'll be honest with you. I don't know the rules when it comes to like putting guys on IR or PUP and what that means for them to come back and how that works. Like that's a little bit more complicated now with the CBA than anything, right? Because that's kind of how they were able to redshirt Cam Latu, who, by the way, I don't think he's going to make this team either. He's on his way out. But yeah, Curtis Robinson, there was an article by Jordan Elliott on NBC Bay Area. I implore all you guys to read about how he had a chance to get an opportunity to go somewhere else. And he said, no, I want to stay and develop as a better player under Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. So he's taking that to heart. And with all the talk about D. Winters, it seems like Curtis Robinson was just there hanging around. And again, don't talk about it, be about it. When you get your opportunity, go out there and show out. And that's what he's been doing. This is a good problem for the 49ers to have. So I wonder what this is going to look like. Does Devondre Campbell just automatically step in there? Probably because he's a vet. But if he struggles, now you kind of feel a little bit better about, possibly playing D. Winters or Curtis Robinson at this point. You're going to need all the depth that you can get with the fact that, Dre Greenlaw may not be back for a little while. So, yeah, I think this is a great development, honestly. And he's just out there. He's just out there hitting, man. He's just moving around and hooping. Speaking of hitting, too, as well, Jair Brown is really good as well, too. That hit in the backfield on Taysom Hill, my God, man. I think he's going to have a huge – it's not me jumping out on a limb saying that Jair Brown's going to have a big season. But, yeah, Tig's a hitter, man. He looked really good in those six snaps.
Yeah, I saw him make that play. I was like, take that man out. We're good.
Yeah, get him on.
I've seen what I needed to see.
Too jacked up, man. Just ripping down Taysom Hill. Woo! Dude. I mean, it was shot out of a cannon too, like where he just look at him just shed the block that he was supposed to get from Chris Olave, and my God, man. Woo!
He's gonna be
boys are hitters, man. Yeah, man, he's gonna be great. I think he's confident. He knows what he needs to do. He's always been confident, but he's more confident in the system. He knows that this is his spot now. I think, obviously, I'm not jumping out on a limb by saying that I think that Tig's going to have a big season because I really do think he is, and I think that's pretty obvious at this point.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge for the secondary, just him in his second year and having grown the way he has. I think we probably see Jair Brown, George Odom start as the 2 safeties.
I would say George Odom is probably going to be your starter across from him. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, until Hufanga returns and it's like 100%. So yeah, and George Odom in the limited time we've seen him in camp and in the preseason, he's looked pretty good as well.
He's solid.
Yeah. So it's not looking too bad. It's not looking too bad for sure for some of these defensive pieces here.
No, it's solid. Honestly, that part is looking good. Is there anything else that really stood out to you in this game? The Derrel Lutter thing is now we could talk about corners. Like
Yeah, we
Derrel
didn't talk
Lutter,
about the
right?
corners.
Derrel Lutter had 6 targets, right? And this is a little bit. I put this tweet out there as like a litmus test, real quick. Derrel Lutter was targeted 6 times, but only allowed 2 catches for 18 yards. That sounds good, right?
Yeah.
But did you watch the game? There was some moments where it got a little scary, right? So I just put that out there. I just wanted to say, I put that out there just to see what people were going to say. Because Renardo Green allowed 1 catch to Chris Olave. 1. And Chris Olave's a dog.
And that was like a really hard route. What that was like? Was he out of the slot on that one too?
Yeah, it was just it was a quick throw, and it's super hard, obviously, because Olave is really good. But imagine a slot receiver and everything. 1 catch is okay. But when we're talking about secondary, it's got to be obviously Lenore and Ward. Let's just talk about corners. Lenore, Ward. I think Renardo Green makes his team. Ambry Thomas is obviously still hurt. I still think Lutter makes his team because I think they still want to see what he is.
What's happening did you mention Yadam? I mean, what's
Yadam? I think Yadam, I think he sticks. Rock Yassin probably goes.
Rocky Sin, I think practice squad candidate though.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. That makes sense. But I think it's Green, Ward, Lenore. We talked about Lutter. I think he stays as well too. I think they really want to see if he can develop. Samuel Womack? What are we thinking?
In spurts, he has made some nice plays, right? And he also has the special teams ability. It wouldn't shock me if the 49ers did bring him back on the practice squad. I mean, that it doesn't hurt to have some guys stashed who can play in your system, even if they're not the best. Like you do need to have some guys stashed away. So I can see Samuel Womack fitting in there. Chase Lucas potentially as well.
He's gone. I think I mean he could be practice squad, but I don't think he's going to make.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Practice squad.
Yeah.
Practice squad. Ambry Thomas, I think, is gone. Like I don't think there's a chance even for the practice squad, in my opinion. Maybe I'm projecting, but.
No, I mean honestly, I think before the injury, we all kind of had him pegged as I don't think he's gonna make it.
Oh yeah, obviously with the injury, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
I think definitely.
So, but I think the injury in a weird way saved him. Like they'll be able to throw him on IR. Well, yeah, right, like throw him on the IR. Maybe just have him stick around. Like they don't have to make an outright decision on him. And I don't mean the injury is a good thing. Like, let me make sure I, state this. I'm just saying, of all the circumstances, him being injured probably makes this easier for him and the team to figure out what they have to do with him in terms of making the 53. Daza has another super chat. Thank you, man. Super generous. There's been little talk about Huff. When is he coming back? With Mustafa, Brown, Odom, Huff, can we play one of our safeties at linebacker? Well, Huff's not playing this week. He's not back at practice, so we don't know when he's coming back. It was reported that it was going to be during the joint practices. Those got canceled, but Kyle just spoke and said that he's not expected to practice this week. So we have no idea when he's coming back. I think we already said we believe it's going to be Tig and George Odom that are going to be starting.
Yeah, and I think sorry to interrupt. The last update on Hufanga came like Thursday or Friday from Kyle Shanahan, and it was just that he was going to be allowed to get into the next step of his rehab, which was beginning like football type movements, right? So, and then they were going to see how that went before they said he could start practicing. So obviously, I just don't think he's there yet to start practicing, but I think he's still progressing though. I don't think it's like necessarily a bad thing that he's not practicing this week.
Yeah, and it says, that there's a possibility, here it is from Matt Barrows, that he'll be ready for week 1. If not, I think they're fine with Odom and Tig. I think in certain sub packages, I could see Mustafa being down at least in the slot. In terms of like expecting a run and being down in the slot with two other linebackers. So I think there's definitely a chance. If there's a chance for anybody to play safety, play linebacker as a safety, it's probably Malik Mustafa, I think. So I think there's a chance that you could see that, because part of the part of being a slot corner, and I think everybody is just fixated on the actual coverage part, is you've got to be another linebacker. Like you've got to be able to get your helmet dirty in in run defense. And I think the 49ers need to shore up the run defense. So I wouldn't be shocked of that. But I just think we don't know right now with Hufanga. I think in a perfect world, he'd be ready for week 1 and rolling like the all-pro that we remember from 2 years ago. But if not, I think they're fine with Odom and Tig. And I think that they can get by with that for now.
Yeah, and I think they're confident in that group because if they weren't, they would have probably signed someone else. Like
Tashawn Gibson's not out there anymore.
Yeah, which I think there was a reason they didn't sign him right away, right? Like he was available for as long as he was. The 49ers didn't seem moved to do that. So I think that speaks to the confidence that they have in the current guys. So that's not a bad thing. And also like Hufanga, maybe being ready week 1. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, I think again, when we're looking at the injuries, it looks like, okay, today's August 20th. The first game isn't until September 9th or 10th for the 49ers, right? Because they play on Monday. There is a little bit of time, but they do have to get down to 53 pretty soon. And these injuries are going to determine who makes the team, who's on IR, what type of. So it's going to get a little interesting if we don't have clear reports about these guys playing and about their health right now, right? Optimism's one thing. What's certain is a whole other thing. And I think that's what's going to make this interesting because the 53-man roster is going to shake out a lot different than we believed because we just assumed everyone was going to be healthy. And it was just, now some of these injuries could keep guys on the roster somehow if they're put on IR, and they probably wouldn't have made the 53 if they were healthy. So I think that's what's weird about this. And I think that's what, you talked about, hey, when do we do our 53-man roster projections? We got to wait. We got to wait at least one more week to see what's there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was especially with some guys coming back. We talked about the 2 running backs. Matt Breida, he looks pretty spry. He looks pretty spry out there.
And playing wide receiver and stuff and moving around. And that was a nice little throw from Dobbs. Matt Breida, old friend alert, might be back on his roster.
At the very least, I think the 49ers would keep him on the practice squad if they feel like they need, they got to cut him. We've asked the question before, is this finally the year where you feel like Elijah Mitchell is not worth keeping on the roster just based on how often, he seems to get hurt? It could be getting down to that at this point. So if that's the case, if Elijah Mitchell does go and you can bring in Matt Breida, I wouldn't be mad at it.
So it would be McCaffrey. Let's just say for intensive purposes, McCaffrey, Mason, Elijah, Matt Breida. Guerendo probably ends up. He can't go on the practice squad because somebody's going to take him away.
Yeah, you have to keep him on the roster.
But he may. But if the hamstring is still a little, they could IR him.
They could stash him. Yeah,
they could stash him.
Stash him that way.
And I think Breida has a shot to make this team because again, they believe in him, right? I think Schrader, if you put him on I think you could make a case for anybody that you put on this practice squad for this team being poached because teams just wait for the 49ers to go for the 53 and they're just waiting. They're like, oh, well, and everybody winds up getting scooped up. But yeah, I don't know if Guerendo has a shot to make the 53 off the rip. They're probably just going to give him a redshirt season and they'll say, hey, it's a hamstring injury. And this is really, I think if you're going to do anything, Elijah's still cheap. He doesn't fumble the football at least. I'm trying to say nice things aside from the injury. He's good in pass pro. But yeah.
Excellent, bro.
So it's tough. It's tough to see Guerendo making this roster now when it should be JP, Mason, McCaffrey, Mitchell, probably Breida. And I think you feel okay. And you said
kind of this very similar discussion that we can have about running backs and prioritizing running backs in the draft versus some guys you can just sign off the street like Matt Breida in this case. Who
running backs have been devalued. Running backs have been devalued 100%. Their position has been devalued.
Yeah,
100%. Especially in a Kyle Shanahan offense, everybody's just like, oh, this guy and that guy. Everybody can. Well, not all the people. It seemed like Guerendo was having vision issues, and remember, I loved him in the process during the combine and everything. He just seemed like a perfect fit, but that doesn't mean that it translates. JP Mason's really good, obviously, but Kyle doesn't trust him in pass pro at times. So that's where he gets a little nervous. But he looks great running the football. Elijah's always hurt. Schrader was somebody was nasty in Missouri. And it just seems like But you did point out, like, the offensive line is not helping him at all, like, on certain plays. But it is results-driven business. Again, it's really how they view what he's doing. Is his process correct? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Guerrero has a chance to make this 53-man roster unless something drastic happens in terms of, like, him coming back and playing very well immediately.
I mean, he's rejoining practice this week, so if he's able to play in that last preseason game and, he looks okay, I think you got to consider it. But, yeah, as always, there's tough decisions to make across the board for the 49ers. I don't envy them having to make these decisions, and every year we get mad at them for cutting a player and a player, like, getting poached. But it's like, realistically, who would you swap out?
Less than that stuff. Who was the lineman last year that the 49ers let go and, like, Arizona picked up and everybody was like, oh my God, never played. So look,
what was his name?
I don't exactly.
We can't even remember.
No, exactly, Steph. That's my point, right? Oh my God, how did you let him walk and let somebody else get? And he never plays. And he never plays for anybody else. We kind of tend to overvalue our own guys. Now, everybody else wants to get their hands on 49ers players.
There are other examples, though, where they've cut someone, they've gotten poached, and that player has ended up starting for another team. So it could go both ways, but I'm with you.
Il Manning. That's who it is. Il Manning.
Manning, yes.
Why did you let Il Manning go? Doesn't even play. Like, does not even play.
Made me spill my water.
I'm glad that you guys helped me, but again, like, we're like, oh no, how could you let it? And then nothing happens. So yeah, a little bit like you gotta take it with a grain of salt. It's like, yeah, you've seen all these things good at camp, but then when they go somewhere else, he's just like, and look, he's still available according to Gabriel as well too. So I think that's pretty funny as well too. But again, we get enamored with these guys that do well in camp, and then they just end up, like, not doing anything, right? Like, at all. And that's just the nature of the game, because football is really hard, I guess. That's it. But I'm just saying, like, it is because so many teams have seen what the 49ers have built that they want to get their hands on players that they let go, because they're like, oh man, if he didn't make the roster, he might still be a good player, all that stuff. But at the same time, sometimes those guys get picked up and then nothing happens. So I don't want people to overreact in terms of, like, oh no, how did they let this person walk? Why did he let someone sign him? And then you end up not hearing his name ever again. So I don't want you to be shocked at that either.
Yeah. I mean, top of the roster in your depth is the most. Get the best 53 guys on the roster. That's it. We don't need to worry about anything else.
100%. And that's a perfect place to end this, guys. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Sign up, subscribe to the Bully Ball podcast and the Gold Standard Podcast Network, wherever you get your audio podcast. Subscribe to the to the Gold Standard Podcast Network YouTube channel. Follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter at Jason Aponte2103. Make sure that you, like and subscribe our YouTube channels too, because we do some content on there on the side as well too. But thank you guys for joining. It's going to be a fun week. Thank you guys as always. Go Niners. And Steph, we're out of here.
Peace.